The town square stood uneasy under a dull gray sky, the wind tugging at loose papers and dry dust as if even it wanted to leave. Elias Carter had not come to Hollow Creek for trouble. He had come to buy a cow. Nothing more. Winter was close, and his small ranch beyond Red Bluff Ridge needed milk if it was going to survive. His pockets carried just enough money scraped together from trap lines and odd labor. Enough for a single cow. Enough to keep going. That was all he wanted. But Hollow Creek had other plans. The moment Elias rode into town, he knew something was wrong. The streets were too crowded, the air too sharp with anticipation. No laughter, no bargaining voices, no wagons trading grain or eggs. Instead, people stood shoulder to shoulder around a rough wooden platform freshly built in the center of the square. A scaffold. Elias tightened his jaw. He had seen those before. Too many times. Back when he wore a badge and still believed the law always meant justice. That belief had been buried 3 years ago with his wife and son. "Move aside," someone shouted. The crowd parted. 2 young deputies dragged a woman forward. She stumbled, nearly collapsing as her feet scraped through the dirt. Her hands were bound tight, the rope cutting into her skin. One side of her face was swollen shut, her dark hair hanging in tangled strands. "She killed a man," someone muttered. "Murderer." Another voice spat. Elias turned his horse, already done with this town. Whatever sickness lived here was not his problem anymore. Then something tugged at his coat. He looked down. A little girl stood beside his horse, barefoot on the cold ground. Her dress was thin, patched so many times it barely held together. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes were steady in a way no child's eyes should ever be. "Mister," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please." Elias felt his breath catch. "It's my mama," the girl said. "It's her last day alive." The words hit him like a blow to the chest. He swallowed hard. "That woman up there?" The girl nodded, gripping his coat tighter. "They say she's bad." "She's not. She's just sick. Please, please don't let them kill her." On the platform, the mayor stepped forward. Mayor Vernon Hale. Clean coat, polished boots, a man who smiled easily. "Citizens of Hollow Creek," Hale called out, "we are gathered to deliver justice." Justice. Elias watched as the noose was lifted, the rope rough against the woman's bruised neck. She swayed, barely conscious. "Any last words?" the mayor asked. Her lips moved, but nothing came out. The crowd murmured impatiently. Elias felt something old and painful stir inside him, a memory of standing helpless while fire took everything he loved. He closed his eyes. "I can't," he muttered, but his hand had already slipped into his coat. The old badge was still there, tarnished, scratched, forgotten by everyone but him. The girl looked up at him again. "Please." Elias Carter opened his eyes. He swung down from his horse and stepped forward, his voice cutting through the square like a gunshot. "Hold it." Silence crashed down. I said, "Hold that execution." 200 faces turned toward him. The mayor frowned. "And who are you two?" Elias raised a badge. "Former deputy. Still sworn. And I say this hanging stops." The rope froze midair. The woman's single open I found his. For the first time that morning, hope flickered. And Hollow Creek learned something it had forgotten. Sometimes justice only needs one man brave enough to remember it. The silence in Hollow Creek felt heavier than the rope hanging from the scaffold. Mayor Vernon Hale lowered his paper slowly, his pleasant expression tightening at the edges. "Elias Carter," he said, recognizing him now. "You left this town years ago. You have no authority here." Elias climbed the steps of the platform without asking permission. Each board creaked under his weight. He stopped beside the woman, close enough now to see how thin she was, how shallow her breathing came. She was burning with fever. "I never resigned," Elias said calmly, holding up the badge. "And until a judge strips it from me, I'm still law." One of the young deputies shifted nervously. "Sir, we already held a trial." Elias turned sharply. "When?" "Yesterday." In one day, his voice hardened. "Arrest, trial, and execution in less than 24 hours? The crowd stirred. Mayor Hale stepped in smoothly. We had a witness. The victim's housekeeper saw her strike him. We acted quickly to protect this town. Elias looked at the woman. Did you kill him? Her lips trembled. I don't remember. Everything was dark. A ripple of anger moved through the crowd. She's lying. Murderer. Elias raised a hand. Enough. He reached up and loosened the noose. The woman sagged forward, and Elias caught her before she fell. She weighed almost nothing. She's sick, he said, and someone this sick doesn't get a fair trial. You're interfering with justice. Hale snapped. No, Elias replied. I'm stopping a lynching. He lifted the woman into his arms and turned toward the steps. The crowd parted slowly, uncertain now. At the bottom stood the little girl, eyes wide. Mama, she whispered. The woman stirred. Lila. Elias placed her gently on his horse, then lifted the girl up behind her. Hold on tight, he said. You're making a mistake. Hale warned. That woman is guilty. Elias met his gaze. Then the truth will survive daylight. He led the horse out of town, every step measured. No one followed. Not yet. The ride to Elias's cabin took nearly 2 hours. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words the wind carried away. The child, Lila, never let go of her. Elias's cabin sat alone in a shallow valley, surrounded by pine and stone. It was small, weathered, and quiet, like the man who lived there. He carried the woman inside and laid her on his bed. Lila stood frozen, watching every move. What's your mama's name? Elias asked gently. Marisol, the girl said. Marisol Reyes. Elias nodded. I'm Elias. You're safe here. He built up the fire, warmed water, and cleaned Marisol's wounds. Bruises old and new. Rope burns. A deep fever. She didn't kill anyone, Lila said fiercely. He hurt her. The man who died. Elias paused. Who hurt her? Lila looked away. Fear tightened her small shoulders. Marisol stirred. The tea, she whispered. He brought me tea. Elias leaned closer. Who did? The mayor, Marisol said weakly. Every day. Said it would help. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. Poison didn't always kill fast. Sometimes it erased a person slowly, piece by piece. That night, Elias sat by the window with his rifle across his knees. He hadn't expected peace, and he didn't get it. Hoofbeats came at dusk. 5 riders stopped at the edge of his land. A voice called out, Elias Carter, we're here for the prisoner. Elias stepped onto the porch. There's no prisoner here, only a sick woman and a child. You can't protect her forever. No, Elias said evenly, but I can protect her long enough. The riders hesitated. Doubt crept in. Tell the mayor, Elias added, that if he wants her back, he can bring evidence, not rope. After a long moment, the riders turned away. Lila appeared behind him. Will they come back? Elias looked toward the dark hills. Yes. She swallowed. What will we do? Elias rested a hand on the badge pinned to his chest. We'll find the truth, he said, and we'll make it loud enough that no one can ignore it. Elias did not sleep that night. He sat in the chair by the window, watching the narrow trail that led down from Hollow Creek. The fire crackled low behind him, and outside, the wind carried the sound of something changing. Not weather, fate. Marisol's fever eased near dawn, but her hands still trembled. Lila slept curled beside her, one small arm wrapped around her mother, as if letting go might make her disappear. Elias stared at them longer than he meant to. He had promised himself he would never carry this kind of responsibility again. Promises, he was learning, were fragile things. At first light, Marisol woke fully for the first time. Where am I? She asked softly. My cabin, Elias said. You're safe. For now. Her eyes widened as memory rushed back. They were going to hang me. They were, Elias replied. They won't today. Tears slipped down her temples into her hair. I didn't kill him. I swear it. I was there, but my head. She pressed her fingers to her skull. Everything felt slow. Heavy. I couldn't think. Lila leaned forward. Mama, you're okay. Marisol touched her daughter's face as if confirming she was real. Then she looked at Elias. The mayor wanted me sick. Elias nodded. Tell me everything. Slowly. She closed her eyes, breathing carefully. Mayor Hale started visiting after my husband died. He brought food at first, then tea, said it would calm my nerves. Her voice shook. After a few days, I couldn't remember things. I'd lose time. I thought I was losing my mind. And the man who died, Elias asked. Jonah Blake, she said. He owned the land we lived on. He started demanding things I wouldn't give. Her voice dropped. That day he was angry. He shouted. I remember him grabbing me. Then darkness. Elias felt his jaw tighten. Did you see anyone else there? He asked. Marisol frowned. A voice. Another man. Arguing about money. That's all I remember. It was enough. Elias saddled his horse an hour later. I'm going back to town, he said. To Blake's place. Lila's eyes widened. They'll see you. I'll be careful. Marisol reached for his sleeve. If you don't come back. I will, Elias said. I always do. It wasn't entirely true. Blake's house stood quiet at the edge of town, the doors shut, the windows dark. A single deputy lounged out front, bored and cold. Elias came in from the back, slipping through a loose window like a memory the house wanted to forget. Inside, the place smelled of stale liquor and fear. Papers littered the desk, unpaid bills, threats from lenders, and then Elias found it. A note, signed, Mayor Vernon Hale. Alone, large, due yesterday. Elias folded it carefully and tucked it inside his coat. In the parlor, he found something else. A belt, fine leather, too fine for a man like Blake. The silver buckle bore initials scratched into the back. VH. Footsteps sounded in the hall. Elias froze. I don't care if Carter's got a badge. Hale's voice snapped. That woman needs to disappear. Tonight, another man replied nervously. And the child? A pause. She's a loose end. Elias felt something cold settle in his chest. He waited until they left, then slipped out into daylight, heart pounding. By sunset, Elias was back at the cabin. They're coming, he said. More of them. Marisol looked at Lila, then back at him. Then we don't stay. Elias nodded. We run. To the old mine beyond the ridge. Lila swallowed hard. Will they follow? Yes, Elias said honestly. But I know the mountain better than they do. He looked at the badge on his chest. He had walked away from the law once. This time, the law was walking with him. Outside, clouds rolled in heavy and low. And somewhere in Hollow Creek, a man with power realized a secret was no longer safe. The riders came at night. Elias heard them before he saw them. Hooves striking stone. Men shouting low, urgent words. Lantern light flickering like restless spirits moving through the dark. They're here, he said quietly. Marisol tightened her grip on Lila's hand. I can walk, she lied. Elias didn't argue. He pulled blankets around them both and opened the back door. Cold air rushed in, sharp enough to bite. Follow me, he whispered. Stay close. No matter what happens, don't stop unless I tell you. They slipped into the trees as the first lanterns appeared at the edge of the clearing. Burn it! Someone shouted behind them. Flames leapt as Elias's cabin caught fire. The dry was surrendering instantly. The light painted the forest in violent orange. Lila gasped. Your house. Keep moving, Elias said. They climbed fast, the trail narrowing as it rose toward the ridge. Marisol stumbled more than once, and Elias caught her each time, lifting her when her legs finally gave out. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, Elias replied. You're still standing. Gunshots cracked behind them. Bark exploded from trees. Men cursed as they chased. Snow began to fall. At first, only a few flakes. Then more, thick and fast, swallowing sound, blinding lantern light. The mountain was changing sides. The mine entrance appeared through the snow like a black wound in the rock. Elias pushed them inside just as shots rang out again. The darkness swallowed them whole. Stay here, he said, guiding them deeper. There's a side tunnel. The ground trembled. Loose stones rattled down from the ceiling. "What's happening?" Lila whispered. "The mountain doesn't like crowds," Elias said grimly. Voices echoed from the entrance. "They're in here." A rumble answered. Wood cracked. Stone shifted. The tunnel behind them groaned, then partially collapsed, cutting off the sound of pursuit with a violent crash. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. Marisol sank against the wall, shaking. "Are they?" "Not dead," Elias said, "but they won't follow us further." Snow blew in through the mine mouth, sealing the path behind them. They climbed out the other side hours later, cold, exhausted, alive. The world beyond the ridge was white and endless. Elias stared north. Silver Crossing is 20 miles. Marisol swayed. "I won't make it." "You will," Elias said. "We all will." He lifted her onto his back. Lila took his hand. They walked into the storm. And behind them, the fire burned itself out, leaving nothing but ashes where Elias Carter's old life had stood. But some things he knew now were worth burning for. The storm showed no mercy. Snow swallowed the land in every direction, turning the world into a shifting white wall. Elias moved forward by instinct more than sight, each step a battle against wind and exhaustion. Marisol's weight pressed heavy against his back. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. "Elias," she whispered once, "you should leave me." "Not happening," he said through clenched teeth. "I don't leave people." Lila trudged beside him, her small boots soaked, her fingers numb, yet she never complained. She just kept walking. That frightened him more than tears would have. Hours passed. Time lost meaning. Then Elias smelled smoke. He stopped so suddenly that Lila nearly collided with him. He turned slowly, scanning the white blur, then saw it. A faint ribbon of gray rising through the storm. "A fire," he murmured. "Come on." They followed it until a cabin emerged from the snow, leaning but standing, light glowing from its single window. Elias pounded on the door. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it opened. A tall, weathered man stood there with a rifle in his hands and ire in his eyes. "State your business," he said. "Shelter," Elias replied. "Sick woman. Child." The man studied them, then stepped aside. "Get inside before you freeze to death." The warmth hit like a blessing. The man introduced himself as Samuel Boone, a trapper who had lived in the high country for decades. Without questions, he set to work. Blankets, hot water, a fire built higher. Boone examined Marisol carefully. "Poison," he said finally. "Slow kind. Can you help her?" Lila asked, her voice barely a sound. Boone knelt in front of her. "I'll try." He brewed a bitter-smelling mixture and coaxed it into Marisol's mouth. Hours passed. The storm howled outside, but inside the cabin, something fragile took root. Hope. By morning, Marisol's breathing had steadied. "She'll live," Boone said, "but she needs time." Elias sagged into a chair. "You look like a man running from something," Boone observed. Elias met his gaze. "I'm running toward justice." Boone smiled faintly and reached into his coat, pulling out a worn silver badge. "Then you're not alone." Elias stared. "Your law." "Still am," Boone said. "And Hollow Creek's mayor has been rotten for years." Elias handed him the evidence. The note, the truth. Boone nodded slowly. "I'll take this to the marshal. Today." "What about us?" Elias asked. "You stay alive," Boone replied. "That's your job." As Boone left on snowshoes, Lila sat beside Elias, wrapped in blankets. "Will he come back?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said. "And when he does, things will change." She leaned her head against his arm. "You didn't give up." Elias looked at the fire, at Marisol breathing steadily now. "No," he said quietly, "and neither did you." Outside, the storm began to break. The storm showed no mercy. Snow swallowed the land in every direction, turning the world into a shifting white wall. Elias moved forward by instinct more than sight, each step a battle against wind and exhaustion. Marisol's weight pressed heavy against his back. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. "Elias," she whispered once, "you should leave me." "Not happening," he said through clenched teeth. I don't leave people. Lila trudged beside him, her small boots soaked, her fingers numb, yet she never complained. She just kept walking. That frightened him more than tears would have. Hours passed. Time lost meaning. Then Elias smelled smoke. He stopped so suddenly that Lila nearly collided with him. He turned slowly, scanning the white blur, then saw it. A faint ribbon of gray rising through the storm. A fire, he murmured. Come on. They followed it until a cabin emerged from the snow, leaning but standing, light glowing from its single window. Elias pounded on the door. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it opened. A tall, weathered man stood there with a rifle in his hands and ire in his eyes. State your business, he said. Shelter, Elias replied. Sick woman. Child. The man studied them, then stepped aside. Get inside before you freeze to death. The warmth hit like a blessing. The man introduced himself as Samuel Boone, a trapper who had lived in the high country for decades. Without questions, he set to work. Blankets, hot water, a fire built higher. Boone examined Marisol carefully. Poison, he said finally. Slow kind. Can you help her? Lila asked, her voice barely a sound. Boone knelt in front of her. I'll try. He brewed a bitter-smelling mixture and coaxed it into Marisol's mouth. Hours passed. The storm howled outside, but inside the cabin, something fragile took root. Hope. By morning, Marisol's breathing had steadied. She'll live, Boone said, but she needs time. Elias sagged into a chair. You look like a man running from something. Boone observed. Elias met his gaze. I'm running toward justice. Boone smiled faintly and reached into his coat, pulling out a worn silver badge. Then you're not alone. Elias stared. Your law. Still am, Boone said, and Hollow Creek's mayor has been rotten for years. Elias handed him the evidence. The note, the truth. Boone nodded slowly. I'll take this to the marshal. Today. What about us? Elias asked. You stay alive, Boone replied. That's your job. As Boone left on snowshoes, Lila sat beside Elias, wrapped in blankets. Will he come back? She asked. Yes, Elias said. And when he does, things will change. She leaned her head against his arm. You didn't give up. Elias looked at the fire, at Marisol breathing steadily now. No, he said quietly. And neither did you. Outside, the storm began to break.